Hey, how's it going? It's your lovely host, Key, and you're tuned in for another episode of Built in Public. This is episode number 4, and today we are going to be working on the Comic Panel app, continuing where we left off in the last episode. And today we're going to be working on application setup. I have a whole bunch of stuff to do today. We're going to see how far we can get. This stream should be somewhere in the ballpark of about 3 hours. It's currently 3:10 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're going to go until about 6 p.m. So go ahead and grab a snack. Go ahead and get yourself a little beverage or whatever you like. I'm not judging. And we'll get started here in just a couple of minutes. Hold your horses. Okay, I think we are ready to get started. I'm going to try something new today. And I am going to do this stream without any background music because I want to give you the freedom to enjoy whatever music you like to enjoy and not have my weird lo-fi, jazz, whatever, what have you, interrupting your flow. And so let me know if this works for you or not. If I don't hear any comments or see any comments about that, I'm just going to continue to do it with no music. I watch my streams sometimes, by the way, and I feel like the music I have in the background does very little in terms of creating value. So I'll probably play some music during the breaks and stuff like that, but we're going to just do this. We're going to do this raw. So anyways, thank you for being with me today. My name is Kim, your lovely host. We're going to be working on the comic app for my Build in Public effort. And before we get started, just some quick housekeeping. And yeah, check this out. So if you want to know more about me and my business, what I do, what this channel is about, you can always check out the official website, which is primatif.com. On this website, you'll learn about my business and also, most importantly, the kinds of services that I offer. And there's also an official GitHub page as well for Primatif. And if you go to github.com/Primatif, you can learn more about what we do. Actually, let me go ahead and pull up that page here for you to take a look at. There we go. Primatif.com/ or github.com/Primatif. And on this page, you can also see the latest streams. I have a really cool tool here that actually, my dog, sorry, my dog is running around. On this page, you can see the latest streams. So that's kind of the short version. Okay, so I was feeding my dog before I started the stream here. So he's probably going to come over here to let me know that he finished his food. And yeah, that's just my life right now as a single dog dad. But yes, check out the official page and don't forget to give us a follow and check out the repository. Everything that I'm doing for today's stream and for all the streams in this Build in Public is going to be on the official Primatif GitHub page. So if you go here, for example, you'll see Primatif Comics App Tauri, which is what we're working on today. There is a main branch, but most of the stuff that we'll be doing will be on the development branch. That's a pretty typical pattern for how people organize the branching strategy. So we'll be working on the development branch, and you can go there to see all the stuff that I've been working on, and yeah, follow along. Okay, so let me summon my dog here so you can quickly see his cute little snoot, and then we'll be on our way. Ogu! Come. Oh, you're at your spot. Good boy. Oh. Yes, good boy. Say hi to the people. Say hi to the people. Oh, you're such a good boy. You're so tall. Ooh, don't lick me in my mouth now. Come on. We don't do that in this house. You're so cute. You're so handsome. You're such a handsome boy. You're such a handsome boy. You're such a handsome boy. Sorry, I get a little excited. Okay. You gonna be good? You gonna be a good boy? You're gonna be a good boy for Papa? You gonna be a good boy? Don't knock over the green screen now. Okay. Okay. Yeah. When I started this well, not really this channel, but a year ago, when I first started like doing the streaming thing more seriously, he was a puppy. He's so tiny. I could hold him like in my arms and on my lap. Now he is a big boy. He's a big good boy though. You're a good boy. He's a big good boy. Up. Up. Yes, good boy. Yes. He's a big good boy. You're a big good boy. And you're also the mascot for my company, Primatif. Yeah, you're the logo. Did you know that? Okay. Okay. Out. He's so good. He's so smart. Out. Yes. Yes. Gotta train him right. Train him up in the way that they should go. Okay, I'm gonna stop. Yes, so that's my dog. I gotta let him get his screen time. You know, he wants to be famous, so this could be the start of his professional career as a social media influencer, perhaps. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started with our app now. Thank you for bearing with me. By the way, I have installed the developer preview of the iOS 26 Tahoe. So my UI is gonna be a little weird in some situations. The big thing that gets me, let me show you the music app, is this is the app, this is the album we were listening to. Some of the UI is weird. This will not affect VS Code or any of the things that I'm doing as far as I know, but like some of the native like Apple iOS apps and stuff, or Mac OS apps, they look a little weird. And some of the stuff with like the menus have changed. We'll just handle it as we go. I don't think that there are any bugs. I don't suspect that there will be any issues, but just a fair warning. That is my actual environment is the developer version of the operating system. So if anything weird happens, I'm just going to blame Apple. But yeah, okay. I've been procrastinating too much. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so when we left off last time, we were working on a sprint's worth of tasks, basically. I have this document that I call current, and in this document, I am keeping track of all the efforts for this current set of work. Now, I'm working by myself, not necessarily like as a part of a corporation or an enterprise. However, I am still organizing my work in a way that kind of mirrors a little bit of the agile process. Okay, so I'm working in sprints. However, for me, a sprint isn't necessarily a 2-week period. A sprint for me is just a collection of work efforts that are cohesive with some type of goal. And that's just like my own personal definition of what I'm calling a sprint, for now at least. So this first sprint is about setting up the foundational CI/CD. CI/CD stands for continuous integration and continuous deployment. Now, those are two really important parts. If you're not familiar, let's go ahead and quickly talk about what that means. And we'll bring up our lovely friend Freeform to make a quick diagram. Okay, so continuous integration and continuous deployment. And continuous deployment. Now, if you're a developer, you probably know what these are, or you've at least heard of these. If you're a vibe coder, vibe coders are welcomed over here at this party. And I just want to kind of cue you in on what these two things mean, because I think that they will help if you're not familiar with these two concepts. So think about the idea that you have this application. And this application has really two major needs as far as its life cycle. The first need of your application is that you are going to make changes. Okay, so these changes can be all sorts of things. Changes can include things like, for example, adding features, fixing bugs, and in general, making updates. Okay, so these are all the things that we do. The labor, so to speak, of being a software developer is about integrating new changes. Okay, and so in a bygone era, long before I was a professional engineer, integration wasn't necessarily a continuous process. But with continuous integration, what this means is that we have a strategy that allows us to continuously integrate updates and changes into our environments. Or really, we'll just call this into our builds, because we're not doing a SaaS apps, we're doing a desktop application. So we don't have like, cloud environments per se. But you will have different builds. We'll have a production build. We'll have a development build, and then we'll have a local build, or we'll have a local build, or you can also call this like a work in progress. Now you can have other types of builds in here. You might have some sub builds somewhere in the scope of development, like performance. You might have one that's specific for a testing or a sandbox environment. Okay, so all of these are just ways that we organize the different builds, with production being the main goal because that's what our users will see and experience. And so when it comes to integration, this is a strategy that we make updates available to target these various builds. And these builds have their own unique purposes, okay? So we'll just move this right here. This is all kind of saying the same thing. Now, what deployment means is, in my application, not only am I concerned with building things, but I'm also concerned with making the actual application available for some user. Now, this could be end users, such as our customers. This could be stakeholders. So like, let's say we have internal stakeholders at our, whatever our company is, and they need to be able to use this application in order to provide feedback or to check the acceptance criteria of whatever features or whatever that they've devised. And we also have the need for this deployment to be available for development purposes as well. Okay. Sometimes you'll see things like A/B testing, which is, I guess, a subcategory of user testing. A/B testing means that I might make two or more versions of my application in order to get the unique feedback from either distribution, in order to make a comparison to determine in a more objective way which version of our application is considered better. Okay, you'll see this a lot, especially with SaaS applications, but as a general concept, it's really important for development, especially when you get towards the user experience side of things. Okay, so continuous deployment means we're making our application available to some user. We'll put an S there. It could be multiple users. And when we're talking about continuous deployment, in this context, we're talking about building an actual application that can be ran. So this could be through the installer or something like that, okay? So an actual application that can be ran. This is opposed to a development environment where I'm in charge of running the development server and all that kind of stuff, okay? So this is like closer to the real deal. So we're gonna call this an executable. Okay, so if it's on a Microsoft computer or Windows computer, it's going to be, I think, a .msi. If it's on Apple, Apple has their own format for this, and so does Linux, and so does iOS and Android. Okay, all of these are different deployment targets, and since we're using Tauri, we have the ability to make deployments that target all these different environments. Okay, so we have continuous integration, and we have continuous deployment. And these are both important concerns. Now, the reason why I have brought this up is because oftentimes when people build applications, they're thinking about the feature development part first, and they're thinking about the CI/CD part second. And I'd like to challenge that notion as someone who has kind of been around the wheel a couple of times with software development. I'll tell you that application integration and deployment are so substantial that it is worth it to chart some type of pathway for these things early and to rework it often. If you wait until the last minute, you're going to be burdened by the increasing complexity of your application, and it's going to be a whole catch-up game, okay? So For my project, there's an underlying reason why I care about these things, and I'm going to tell you those reasons now. So for continuous integration and for continuous deployment, my number one goal is that I want to make my app available as early as possible for potential users to test and play with. This is my underlying reason why I am starting my app development with these two areas instead of just jumping into the actual features. I already know what the features are. That's why I have a scope document. And also I have a prototype. So that part is not as much of a mystery. I just need to figure out a way to take the concept that I have for my application and make it actually work, okay? So I want to make my app available as early as possible for potential users. Another key thing here too is that in the event that I need to share current state of the application, I want to be able to point to something relatively stable that can be used. Okay, so when we talk about the continuous integration, remember that we have these different builds, right? And these builds are typically designated by a branch that is in our GitHub repository, okay? So if someone comes along and says, hey, I'm an investor for your application, can I check out the latest version? Or let's say that I'm putting this app online and I want for people to be able to play around with it. Well, I want to have the ability to say, hey, here is the stable version of my application, which may get updated once a month or so. And here's the experimental nightly builds of my application, which might be like my dev branch, right? And by having this structure, then I always can point people in either direction. Okay, so this is how we're thinking about it. Okay, so application, continuous integration, and continuous deployment. And the continuous part of this, what that really means is that instead of doing these things manually, like for example, running a build on my computer and then and then uploading it somewhere, I will devise systems that will handle and manage all of that stuff for me. So within the GitHub workflow, there will be a series of steps or a procedure, if you will, that will handle both of these things for me. Let me make sure these are the same width. I get really particular about this type of thing. Actually, we're going to go ahead and merge these two into the same text area. Okay, so at some point, what I will do is I will come back and I will actually fix this up. I love making these explanatory graphics. They're really great to make for yourself even. Even though I'm doing this on the stream, this is something I would do for myself regardless. I really believe that there's a lot of power in visualizing your thoughts instead of just leaving them in your head. Okay, so these are the two areas that I'm concerned with. I hope that helps. If you have questions, just go down to the chat and let me know what your questions are about this, but we're going to go ahead and move forward. Let's just give this a title. Okay, cool. Okay, so with our application, we have not gotten to the CI/CD part, but we did get our application started. And we have just kind of like a boilerplate starter app that was generated as a template using Tauri. Using Tauri with SolidJS as our front end. And we're gonna expand on this little placeholder app. It's not meant to do much. It's really just there so we can get our CI/CD in place. So let's go ahead and run our application really quick. Bun, run, and we'll do dev. Bun, run, dev. Oh, sidebar. While I was gone over the weekend, I decided that I am officially going to just use Bun to handle some parts of this application, such as managing the dependencies and just stuff like that. I'm not going to use Bun to necessarily do the packaging or the building of the application. I'm going to continue to use Vite for that. But using Bun to run things like tests and to use Bun to do things like manage my dependencies and stuff, it's going to give us a performance boost. And since this will likely be a very large application, it's going to significantly cut down some of our development time. So we're not sitting around waiting for things to happen. NPM is just extremely slow. So Bun has won, and that's what we're going to use. So this is our placeholder application. If I right click and go to inspect, I can actually see the developer tools, much like what you would see if you were developing inside of a browser. It's pretty much the same thing, same tabs. Okay, so we got that, and I'm going to go over a couple more things before we jump into continuing our current sprint. So one important new development here is that we have some additional research that I have added to this repo. And this research is going to basically, I'm going to show you like my process of how I develop a project basically. So I believe that instead of just getting inside of your AI tool and just jumping into it and saying, hey, make this, make that, do this, do that, I think that that is a very haphazard way to develop even with AI. So what I personally recommend is that you do research and then integrate that research into your project as you go. And sometimes that could mean refactoring, sure, but do not just jump on things as they come to you. Create a buffer and also make backlog items. This is a better way to do it. It also mirrors the way that you will actually develop in a team environment. You don't, like if you're, for example, like on a team, you don't just have someone say, hey, we want to add WebAssembly, for rendering. And then you just do it like that same day. No, that's not how that works, okay? You continue with whatever you're working on and you bring that to a state of completion. And then you incorporate any new findings, any new research, any new learnings, and then you use that to shift or pivot the direction of the next thing you do or the next set of tasks, okay? And so basically I have here some research that I did over the weekend, and this is about how we could use WebAssembly to enhance the performance of our application. And I did this based on researching how apps like Figma or Google Slides or Miro handle the same thing. Because even though those aren't comic apps necessarily, they are Canvas style apps that can handle tons of different objects on a canvas that users can manipulate, which is not that different from any sort of like creative layout type software. Okay, so I did that research and then I devised a plan for how we could use WebAssembly that is built from Rust to do that with our application, which should give us something closer to native performance, even though this is a application meant to run in WebView. Okay, so all I did was I have this research here as a file. I have a designated place here. And then I took this research and then I figured out what would be the actual backlog work items that I could extract from this that will add value to my existing plan. Okay, so I'm not going to go back and change my scope document yet. This is only going to result in backlog. And then as I work on the next part of my project scope, then I can incorporate things from my backlog to create the new sprint. Okay, so we're sort of merging in things from our research, from our external learnings, and merging them into our workflow instead of allowing them to replace it or take us on these huge tangents. And that makes for a more stable workflow. You do not want to be on a roller coaster. Roller coasters are great for amusement parks, not great for software development, okay? We want to have a stable, predictable, and planned work life here, okay? So that's the big major thing that I changed. It didn't result in any changes in our code. It's just something I'm going to consider when I move beyond the simple CI/CD setup. Anything else? I think that's pretty much it. So my goal today, even though I've been talking a lot, is really just to jump in. So let's go ahead and do just that. So I'm going to load up Gemini. I'm going to load up the Pro model. I'm going to use my own Google account because I really want to leverage that free tier of service before I start using my API tokens. I'm sorry. I always be coughing out here. You know, my allergies. It's been raining for the past 2 days. Okay, so we're going to load up. I'm going to do G Pro, which is my alias for Gemini to run with the Pro 2.5 model. And let me show you how you can start your new session so that you're not starting from scratch. So if you can remember, in the last stream, one of the things that I showed you all is that I keep a log, and I'm calling this a change log. There's probably a better term for this, but it is just a plain text document that has logs that basically describe every time I have a work session on this project. And so you can see here, this is the most recent one. So when I start a new work session, I will give a couple instructions. I'll say, hey, we are going to work on this app. We will continue working on the current.md document. And current.md is my actual sprint. And let's go ahead and give this a reference. Like that. And then I'll say, before we start, I need you to remember where we left. I spelled where wrong. Left off. And so please read, and I'll put changelog. Yep, changelog.txt, as well as the project scope documents. You can also, let's see, anything else? I think that's pretty much it. Don't do too many different things, okay? I think really having a change log and then a current sprint and then a project scope document, or whatever it is that you have that defines like your epic or something. I think those are really the main things here. Okay, so I'll say, after you read these, please let me know what we are doing next. And I'll just give it a second to do its thing. So it's really important for you to make sure that you're working in an organized way that tells a recoverable story. This is also important too, because as you're working, these AI tools, sometimes they be acting crazy, okay? Sometimes AI tools, they be on something, okay? And you never know. I've had work sessions where I am like an hour in and I'm working on something super critical and also like super specific. And then all of a sudden, AI is like in a weird loop, or it's like not listening to me, or it's like spitting out like weird characters. That all those things have happened to me in the past year when I've been using like agents and stuff like that. So you always want to keep some type of accurate source of truth for what you're trying to do, what you're currently doing, why you're doing it, that kind of thing. And if you don't have these systems in place, don't worry. You can have your AI agent also just read your Git history, if your Git commits are properly organized, that is, okay? So, that's just like a little caveat there to let you know that having some type of contextual memory so that you can pick up where you left off is super important, okay? Okay, so this is saying here that based on the current.md, we have completed step 1 to initialize the project, which is true. And now we're going to work on the back end setup. And yeah, so let's just read through this. To build the backend's foundation, focusing on data persistence and establishing a clean error handling API that the front end can communicate with. Integrate Rust SQLite into the Rust backend. Create a simple messages table. Okay, and add a custom serializable app result type in Rust. Okay, and implement 2 commands: get message and update message. So we're gonna have a message on the DOM, and we're gonna be able to update that message. And Yeah, so that's it for step 2. So the main thing here is that we want to be able to test out this whole part of our application where we have an actual backend that connects with SQLite. We want to make sure that that flow works correctly and that we can build our application and run it with all of that still working. Okay, so I think that we are good to go with this. One thing I'm going to tell it here is we currently have some placeholder stuff in our app, in our front end, and in our back end from the template we use to spin up this app. Please scan the source, and we'll just say and Tauri source, or source Tauri, my bad, to understand this. And as we go, we need to make sure we clear this stuff out so it's not lingering, including any static assets and whatnot, as well as any dead code resulting. Okay. The goal here is to have a simple piece of database derived text on our DOM to verify that the backend works correctly. Okay, so basically the whole idea here is that when we spin up our application from the little template that Tauri provides us for SolidJS, you can see here that we get a bunch of stuff for free. We get like these logos and stuff here. We got a form. We got this little placeholder text, a button. We don't need any of this stuff, so we just want to make sure that it's not lingering and floating around. That way we don't have to worry about it later on. Okay, so we want to have a clean slate, and we can see here that the same thing is also true for Tauri. Tauri comes with some logos and stuff. These are used for the application icons and whatnot. The application icons we can actually leave. We can actually leave this whole directory for icons. I don't have replacements for them just yet. We can leave the icons in. Okay, we'll take care of those later on. Actually, I need to think of like, what is a cool icon and a cool provided image is not valid. What does that mean? Did I give it a weird link? Try again. Okay, I don't know what that means. Let me try to open up an image that didn't exist. Okay. Okay, so okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with this. Go. Tell it to go. Now, I don't know any Rust code. I can program in a lot of different languages, so I understand what Rust is trying to do. I'm more of a Golang, TypeScript developer, Golang, TypeScript, Python, JavaScript type developer. I've done a little bit of PHP. So I know Rust is a whole different ballpark, but we're gonna see what happens. Okay, so let's check out these changes. So the first thing that it did was it added Rust SQLite, because we're using SQLite, so we need to have that dependency, a driver essentially. Okay, and now it's going to make It's going to make a file that will set up our database. And that is, where'd it go? Okay. Here it is. So this is our schema. Okay. It's going to be an integer. This is for the key. This is the actual text. Okay. And then it's going to set up an error handling module. Let's see where it put that. I need to, okay. Database, okay, so error handling. One thing I'm wondering is, do we really want the error handling module to be floating out here? In my mind, I know that this is going to be a big app, and I don't know if I want the database error handling to be in a general error handling file, or if I want it to be in a module by itself. That's interesting. Okay, so I'm seeing this. So if you look at this, this is all like kind of like muted out, and it's saying that this is not included anywhere in the module tree. So these other files, you can see, don't have that. So let me just pause here, and let me make sure that this is not a concern. Errors.rs is saying that the file isn't included in the file tree. Okay, so they'll be declared later on. Okay, sure, just making sure. Okay, so it's going to declare those modules here, and then, okay. Uh-oh, I'm seeing red. I'm nervous. I'm so nervous right now. Now that modules are correctly declared, I will proceed with creating the database management module. Let's go ahead and give it this to fixed really quick. So one thing I always tell people when you're developing, this is not just an AI thing. In general, always check the problems tab and fix problems as you go. Do not save them. I know AI is going to try to reassure you sometimes, and sometimes, like, it might have a bigger thing in mind, but you do not want to stack up your errors. Okay, that is terrifying to me. So you've hit a common Rust development issue. Even though the file exists, the Rust language server running in your IDE sometimes needs a little nudge to see the new file structure. This can often be resolved by running the cargo command, which reinforces. So we'll just run cargo check. I'm going to do it on my own. And it says could not find cargo.toml. Okay, I probably have to, oh, we need another terminal. Let's go ahead and cd into source Tauri and do cargo check. And then we're going to let it know what happened when we did that. See, this is already getting messy. This is already getting messy. It says that it didn't have a version for Rust SQL Lite. Depends on with the feature SQL, but SQL doesn't have a feature. specified a feature that doesn't exist. I will correct this by, okay. I'm getting a little nervous now. Okay, check now. Okay. That was why our app crashed a little bit ago, by the way, because of that. So I'm glad we paused to check that. And let's check our problems tab. Okay, we're good. I have so many terminals. I have 3 terminals open right now. I might actually have run one of these terminals off screen. Okay. It's still going. Thanks for joining us today. If you're new to the channel, we are working on the Comic Panel app, which is an app that is designed to help comic book artists do what they do faster, better, more efficiently, and more creatively. This is a passion project for me. I actually have a master's degree in illustration focusing on comics. So this project is at my heart, and I've been wanting to work on something like this for a while. So that's what we're doing. Thanks for joining us. My name is Key. I'm your host. This is Primitive. Okay, so cargo check was complete. The compiler now recognizes our modules. And oof, I messed that up. Okay. Okay, cool. So we can now make our models, which are basically the types that we're going to use for this. Okay. And the models also needs to be included as well. We'll create a command rs file and implement the get message and update message Tauri command. Okay. Cool. And I'm going to run cargo check here again. We're going to read through this code before we get too deep into this. I'm just trying to get to like a good checkpoint, because I just want to make sure that I'm not like glazing over all of this too hardcore, which is one of the big problems with using AI agents, especially when you're working in a language you never really used like this before. Okay, so base directory app variant is incorrect. It should be base directory app local data. Second, more importantly, the app error enum needs to be serializable so that it can be sent to the front end. I can fix this by adding, okay, cool. Okay, so let me just check one more thing before I have it continue. I'll say models.rs seems to be an undeclared module like before. Also, make sure there's no other ones here. Can you fix never mind. It looks like it is fixed. I think this Rust analyzer thing is just kind of slow. Yeah, I think it was Rust analyzer. So I gotta check down here. If you look where my mouse is, down in the corner by where my head is, down here, this is Rust analyzer, And when that little wheel is spinning, I guess it means that it hasn't fully acknowledged any of the updates. So it has now. And I'll just tell it, okay, let's pause here and update the current .md document to reflect our current progress. And then after it does that, I'm going to look through all of these changes and probably also work alongside my little AI agent here to understand exactly what this code is doing before I move on. Like, once again, this is something you must do because you are responsible for everything your code does. And if you don't know what it's doing, that is a danger zone. Okay, we're gonna also tell it to please add some notes to the current to describe the reality of our actual work with useful information like we have in the past. So in my current .md document, one of the things that I'm trying to do is I'm trying to keep some notes, because sometimes when you're working on a task, you're making a lot of assumptions, and those assumptions don't always necessarily hold to be true. And so what I recommend is keeping notes. That way you can kind of compare, like, okay, this is what I was trying to do, but maybe I had a wrong assumption and this is what I ended up doing instead. That way, if your plan does deviate from what you had, you can keep track of those deviations. So that's what I'm having it do right now. Okay, so it added some notes here. This involved adding RESTQLite, this error dependency, we counted a fixed flag. Okay, cool. Okay. Okay, so now we have completed step 2. And one thing I'm going to ask it to do is let's pause, and I would like you to give me a walkthrough of what we did for step 2, how it works, etc. Explain this for someone who is new to Rust. Excuse me, to Rust. Ooh, excuse me. I bet my dog just stood up because he always does when I sneeze. Yeah, he did. Okay, so I'm going to have it just be kind of my tutor here for a second, and we're going to let it just guide us through what we just did. And also, excuse me. Also, we're going to make sure our application still builds. It might not, but I just want to see what the current state of the application is. So just to make sure, like, the dependencies and the stuff didn't introduce any new, like, errors or issues. So it's just going to take a second. We're going to take a break here in about 15 minutes just to get some water, to stand up, stretch our legs, and to let our poor little puppy go out and take a potty break. My dog is so patient. He's such a good boy. He's over there waiting so politely. Okay, so while that is doing its thing, I'm going to just read through this. Okay. Yeah, I'm just going to read through this real quick while it's doing its thing there. Okay, so the big picture, what is the... Oh, wait, we need it to tell us about... Yeah, okay, so authoritative core. So SolidJS front end, this is what the user sees and interacts with. The buttons and the canvas and the text boxes. It's responsible for being fast and responsive. The back end, Rust, is the brain of the application. It holds the official true state of all the data. It doesn't trust the front end. It validates everything, and it's a single source of truth. This is what we mean by authoritative, and that is by design. Oh, it looks like our app did not build. And it had something to do with the librs online 20. Oh, the database isn't set up fully. I think that's the issue. Okay. Yep, so we're going to want to do that before we get to the other stuff. That actually is quite important. Okay, so let's just continue reading this. Given the back end and memory, so database integration, cool. SQLite is a file base. Okay, I already know all this stuff here. And RustQLite is a driver that allows us to communicate to the actual SQLite database. So, yep. So inside of this cargo.toml file, this is the Rust SQLite. And I believe that this bundled property here means that it is going to be bundled with it instead of running as a separate instance. Let me just check this out. Give me 1 second. Okay, it says this. I'm checking out the official GitHub page for SQLite, which is this page right here. And what this is saying is that there is a feature called bundled. Uses a bundled version of SQLite. This is a good option for cases where linking SQLite is complicated, such as Windows. I'm not sure if that applies to us, but let's go ahead and just keep a little dog ear on that, and we'll come back to that here in a few moments. Okay, so it says it here. Features bundle. This is an important detail. It tells RustQLite to package a copy of SQLite code directly into our app. This makes installation for the end user seamless, as they don't need to have SQLite installed on their system beforehand. Okay, cool. We created a plain SQL file, which is this file right here. And to define the structure of our messages table, this keeps our database structure separate from our Rust code. Perfect. We created a Rust module to manage the database, which is this one here. And database manager struct, we wrote, has one job: open a connection to the database file and run the schema.sql script to make sure the tables exist when the app first starts. This is a good practice. Keep all database setup logic in one place. So database manager. And let's see, what's this? Okay. Okay, so this is opening up a new database connection, and we're saying that the connection Okay. So these are basically methods. Yeah, these are basically methods. And the second one here is initializing the schema from this file. Okay, cool. Whenever you resize your terminal, Gemini CLI just gets so unhinged. Okay, so create the safety net, error handling. Things can go wrong. The database file could be corrupted. We might try to read a message that doesn't exist. A good backend needs a robust way to handle these errors and report them. But we did. We created a new custom error system using errors.rs. Okay, so result T. Okay, so this right here, this is the basic error handling in Rust. Rust functions that can fail return a result. A result is an enum, a type that can be one of several variants. This is either an OK value if the operation succeeds or an error. That's kind of like Golang. Golang has that too. This forces us to handle potential failures everywhere they might occur. Okay. Okay. Enum app error, which is this right here. We define our own error type. It can be a database error, a validation error, not found, file system error. I don't see this question mark thing. That might be somewhere else. Oh, it's talking about this right here. Okay. So this here, this question mark operator at the end of many lines in the Rust code, it's a shortcut that if a function call returns an OK value, the question mark unwraps it and gives us this value. Okay, so that's what's going to happen here. This is where we're going to be selecting from our table. This is where we're inserting, and we're unwrapping the results of that, I suppose. Okay. Okay. And then serialize. This is a key fix we made. We added derive serialize. I think that is in here. Okay. So this tells Rust how to convert our custom error types into JSON. Because our front end is JavaScript and JavaScript's native language is JSON. This is how we send a structured, understandable error from the Rust backend to the front end. Okay, building the bridge. The front end JavaScript can't just call any Rust function at once. That would be insecure. We need to explicitly create a bridge for communication. This bridge is the API. So we have our two commands, get message and update message. So in our last stream, we talked about this invoke function that can be used inside of our front end. So this is instead of like making an HTTP request. Let's just take a look really quick. Let's go to our source and go to app.tsx. So this right here, this invoke method or function that comes from Tauri API core. This allows us to asynchronously call a function that is declared in our Rust code. So for example, we have this greet function that has an argument of name. And if you look in our Rust code, we'll find that, I don't remember what file it's in. Oh, maybe we deleted it. Oh yeah, we got rid of it. Okay, so basically like this right here, this is a registered command. So is this one down here. So the name of our function can be passed in as an argument that we can use to access that same function with an invoke function in our front end. So right here. Okay. So we're gonna use like get message or send message as the first argument for invoke. And that will allow us to use our Rust code. So Tauri command is a macro or attribute. It is a piece of code that writes more code for us. By adding this line to the Rust function, we tell Tauri, expose this function to the front end so that JavaScript can call it. That's what I just said. State management. Notice that DB state arcmutex connection parameter in our commands. This part right here. This is crazy looking. This looks wild. I'm not even gonna lie. This looks crazy. Yeah, that looks crazy. This looks complicated, but the concept is simple. We only want to open the database connection once when the app starts. We then put this connection into Tauri's managed state. The state parameter is how we ask Tauri to give us a reference to that shared connection from within a command. So we can always use this database connection within our code down here, and this is how we are able to do that. Okay. So we're sharing references across our application. And this is one database connection. We're not opening up a new database connection every time. We have one, and that one loads when our application starts. Okay, so in librs here, it says that we have .invoke handler. So this librs, this is like, I think the this is like the second to the entry point file, essentially. So this is determining what's happening when our application loads up and stuff. And it's saying that somewhere within here, we have an invoke handler. So we're registering our commands right here. We could probably spread these at some point in the future. Okay. And similarly, the database setup up here, it's also being set up initially as well. Okay, so there are a couple things I want to do before we move on. One is I need to add some comments to this code so that I can understand it, since I am new to Rust. And also, I'm likely to forget some things as well. And then we also need to fix the fact that our server or our application crashed. And I think it's crashing because of SQLite. So I'm going to do the first thing with the comments. I'm going to do a commit, and then I'm going to fix the actual fact that our application doesn't run. So, okay, let's go ahead and add some standard. Oh, actually, let's do it like this. Since we're using Gemini CLI, I have some Gemini standards here. Okay, I'm going to have it create a new standard. So new standard for all code, including Rust code, to have proper encode or proper encode documentation. This means that I can read the files and understand easily what's happening with standard comments and whatnot. Please update the files that we are working on. You can figure these out by looking at what is not ready to be staged, and update the standard in our Gemini.md file system. Make sure we aren't being redundant if we have other code documentation standards. I think we already have one for like JavaScript front end. I want a general standard for all languages. I'm always and forever going to want encode documentation. Period. Point blank. Okay, we're gonna take a break in about 10 minutes. About 10 minutes. So hold your horses. Thank you for joining me. My name is Key. You're tuned in to Primitive. We're working on a comic panel application. This application is designed to help comic book artists and creatives do what they do faster, better, more efficiently, and more creatively. It's my little self promotion. Okay, so it's going to make the standard first. Let's just double check this. Okay, the existing standards focus on high-level architecture, error handling patterns, and testing principles. They don't explicitly encode documentation. Okay. We will create a new file to define standards. This keeps the standard. Okay, so let me just say, well, for JS, TS, there is TS docs and JS docs, which I want to use. I want to use whatever is comparable with Rust as well. And this should all be based on what is most standard. Now, it was already going to do TS and JS docs. I just don't know what that equivalent is for Rust. Also, I don't want a bunch of triple slashes everywhere. It's going to get really gross looking. Let's see. What does a multi-line comment in Rust look like? Oh, that's what the triple. Okay. Okay, let's just see what happens. We can always update this later on. I ran out of my pro tokens. That's fine. That happens. I was expecting that to happen. That's why we're not using my API key just yet. I'm stingy with it. I am. If you're not watching out and you're using your API key and you're not taking care of your context size, let me tell you, you can. Oh, it already did. Yeah, you could run up your bill. I ran up like $40 worth of bill in like a weekend, and that will. It may happen again, but it's going to be worth my time if it does. And ever since then, I've just been using the free tier. And when you use the API key, by the way, it does not use your free tier, quote unquote, first. It just starts charging you. And I saw that wasn't how it was supposed to work, but that's what it's doing. So yeah. So I just have it logged in with my Google account at the moment. Okay. Rust doc. Does Rust doc allow for multi-line comments? And is this acceptable or better than having triple slashes everywhere, which I feel is a bit messy? I don't like it. I don't like. Look at this. Look at this mess. Look at this mess. I don't like that. Okay, thank you. Yeah, because I just don't want to have like all these like triple. Okay, 1 second. Can you make sure the standard for Rust doc is updated to be less messy and similar to the way we are commenting and documenting TS docs, but in a way that is valid for Rust doc. It didn't change it. That's why you have to check. You must check, and we also got to check our problems tab too. I have a linter that I can call here in a second too with autofix. Okay, that looks much better. Okay, so now we're going to just go through and we're going to update the code to have actual documentation. So this looks much better. Much better. Much better. Oops. Okay, so let's just go through and now we'll just manually check these. I'm going to do a quick commit as well, just for the Gemini standard. Wait, what is this? Yeah, just for the Gemini standard files. And oops. Okay. Okay, so it's wanting to go ahead, but we're gonna just say we're gonna tell it no for now. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and just check through these files manually on my own, just to kind of skim through and make sure that we have the appropriate commentary. So we don't need to worry about that file. This one is fine. This one is fine. Command rs retrieves the most recent message from the database. This command is exposed to the front end via Tauri's IPC mechanism, which is invoke. The arguments, so db Tauri state manage. Okay. An okay message. If a message is found, okay. If the message table is empty, an error. Okay. Okay. Cool. Okay, so this inserts a new message. I mean, we don't need any like validation or anything like that right now, but we are using parameterization, which is safe. Okay, so that's good. Errors dot No.004 defines the custom error types for common Rust alias for the application. The module centralizes error handling, providing a consistent way to manage and propagate errors throughout the back end. Errors are designed to be serializable for easy communication with the front end. The represents the various types of errors that can occur within the application. This enum provides a structured way to categorize and handle different error conditions, making debugging error reporting more consistent. Database operation contains a string representing an line. Okay, cool. Perfectamundo. I'm still a little bit unsure where this is coming from. Okay. Okay, so lib, I won't look at it right here. So this is the main library for the Primatif Comics Tauri application. This crate handles the core backend logic, including database interactions. So I think what happened when our application crashed is that we had a unrecoverable error. And it doesn't necessarily say where that error occurred, does it? Thread main panicked. Okay, so line 20. It's probably a different line now because we have a SQLite error. Cannot open extended code. Unable to open database file. Oh, we don't have app.db. Okay, that's probably just something we can add. Yeah, so right here is what this is complaining about. We don't have an app.db. I don't know what that's supposed to be, but we'll figure that out after our break. So what's next? We can check model.rs. The data model used throughout the application. This model contains structs that represent the structure of the data stored in the database and exchanged with the front end. Perfect. Wait, this is okay. 32-bit integer. Okay, yeah, that's fine. This is not long term. This is just for now. Manages the application's database connection and schema. This struct is responsible for initializing the database connection and ensuring the required table schema is created on application startup. Yes. Okay, new connection. So this is like kind of like database pool. If you're like an Express node server developer. Okay, so this all looks good to me. This all looks great to me. I'm going to go ahead and commit this. It's not working. We're going to fix it, but we're going to do the fix in a separate commit, which, by the way, I highly recommend. A lot of people will just see an error and just keep working on it. But the issue is that whenever you're trying to fix something, you need to have something to compare it to. Also, you don't know if you're making things worse or not. So if you have an issue, do a commit. If something is working, do a commit. In either situation where you're in a good or a bad state and you just realized it, make a commit to mark that spot. Commits are not just for like when things are working and good. Okay. So with that commit, I can come back after my break. I'm gonna go ahead and run the dev so I can get like a renewed version of this error message. But when we come back from our break, we're going to fix this error before we move on to the next part. Also, too, because we are going to be starting like just a new sub chunk of work, I'm going to also refresh my memory, which will reduce my token utilization. So we were we actually have quite a large context. We're going to have to come back and fix our Gemini file systems eventually in the future here. But another thing we can do here is we can say compress, and that's going to compress the current context as far as like its memory of the chat session. And that has huge implications because as the chat session grows, we're using non-linearly more context, which is going to result in a lot more expensive transactions. So you can see here we're at 48,000 tokens for our chat history, and we've reduced it down to 15. That's still quite large, but that's more manageable. Okay, so we're gonna take a break, and I will be back in, I don't know, let's say 15 minutes. So that will bring us to 150. Yeah, I'll be back in 15 minutes. Don't go too far, but if you go anywhere, make sure you make your way back to the wolf pack, and I'll be right here where I'm at. And while you're away, stretch your legs, take a breath, get a snack, and come on back. I'll see you in 15 minutes. Now.
It's the breakdown. Release that. Release that.
Hello, lovely friends and family. Welcome back to Primitive. And today on this wild safari, we're working on our comic book making application. And if you're new to us, check it out. The goal here is to make some type of application that makes it easier for comic book artists to create, innovate, and tell their stories with originality and uniqueness all through a brand new digital platform called Primatif Comics. That was my attempt at doing a British accent. I don't know if that is offensive. I'm so sorry, British people. I'm sorry to offend thee. My bad. You know what? Let's just go ahead and focus on this. I think I've gotten off track. Okay, so where we left off is we attempted to set up our new Rust QL driver to work with SQLite, and we got as far as writing the actual code. We have set up in here the database module with the schema and some commands these commands will be exposed to the front end to actually receive and send the messages. And then we have some error handling and this lib folder or file. This will be the main entry point file that sets up our Tauri application. And then, so this seems like it should work, but it in fact doesn't. And we have an error message here. And this error message is presumably because we don't have an app.db file that it's trying to resolve here. Now, I don't know if that's 100% accurate, but I'm going to have this message essentially passed back into our Gemini session, and we're going to see what it thinks. I'm going to have it not just fix the problem, but I wanted to explain it and then fix it so that I kind of understand what's happening here. I don't personally have a lot of experience with Rust. I'm more of a Golang, Python, JavaScript, TypeScript, C#, Java type of person. Okay, that's the type of thing that I be doing. But this, Rust is the perfect language for our application, so I'm going to try to make it work. So let's go ahead and feed our message back into Gemini, and I'm going to say here, don't just fix this, but explain it. Okay, so that's done. And let's go ahead and read what it says up here. So this error, so is what I thought. Yes, that's correct. Okay, indicates that the application is unable to create or open the SQLite database file at the specified path. Yes, I don't have a database file, and SQLite is a file. How do you describe it? It's a file. It uses files. So here, I'll just pull up the page here. It says that. It's an embedded database that works within a file system, essentially. So yeah, and I guess it just needs to have a file to use. Let's read on. The SQLite feature failure with cannot open typically means one of two things. Permissions issue, the application does not have the necessary right permissions to create the file in that location, or missing parent directory. More commonly, especially in new setups, the parent directory leading to, so that doesn't exist. The Rust QL-like connection open function by default does not automatically create these intermediate directories. Given this is a fresh app, the second reason missing the parent directory is probably the problem. We need to ensure that the directory where the app.db file will reside exists before attempting to open the database connection. We can do this by adding a call to, Okay, so we need to make sure this is happening within the code, not just something I manually do. Especially because it's going to be packaged and running on a user's computer. Let me move my big head out the way. My bad. I'm sorry, y'all. I just be all up in the way. Sometimes I watch my streams. I'm like, why is my head so big? I like it like that. But anyways, okay, so yeah, we're gonna write code basically that will set up the file directory so that the app.db can have a place to live. Okay. Now, one thing I'm thinking about is that this database needs to eventually live somewhere outside of the place where the application resides. Let me rephrase that. This database should not exist exclusively within an environment that only exists if the app is running. Because the issue we'll run into is that if the application restarts or if the user reinstalls the application, it's just going to mean overriding or replacing that database. So I think, at least for right now, I'm thinking that this database needs to reside in a stable location on the user's computer that can be accessed regardless of the actual running installation of the software, so that memory is persistent despite these the application running. I think I'm not really sure, but that's not going to be a problem right now. I can always modify that later on. Okay, so now I'll modify the setup function and let's see what it's going to do. Okay, so it added a new dependency for file system, and now it is going to ensure the directory for the database file exists if the directory, okay, what's this path thing? Oh, right here. Okay, so if this exists, db path.parent. Oh, okay, so it's looking at the parent directory. I see, okay. And where is this coming from? Where does parent directory come from? It's a part of path. Okay. And what is this saying? Okay, so let's go ahead and try to run our app again, I guess. I don't know. Now I'm noticing that it does take a hot minute, probably hot 2 minutes, 3 minutes for the application to actually run when I run in development mode. I don't know if there's a way to make this faster, and so I guess the first time it runs, maybe it's just slower, but I'm not sure if there's a way to make that faster or if it will become slower, both of which are concerns, but becoming slower is definitely more of a concern. So we're gonna have to monitor that. At some point in the future, I would actually like to make some type of like automation performance utility or something. That way we can actually have some metrics around the build time for that, because that could actually be a significant bottleneck in our development process. All of those minutes and whatever of waiting for things to build and deploy, that stuff really adds up. And if you're not paying attention, it could actually become the majority of your development time. Okay, so let's see what this is going to do. This is going to update our cargo file. Oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you scrolling? Yeah, this is going to update our cargo file, which is this one right here. And let's see what it's going to do. Oh, it's freaking out. Okay, so Tauri plugin log. Oh, this is trying to go into the next step. Okay, so that's cool. Let me take a moment here, and we're just gonna update the commit for what we fixed, And then we can continue working on this. This is actually moving us into step 3, which is fine. Which is fine for now. So let's get rid of some of these windows. I'm gonna actually restart my Gemini session as well. When your session gets too long, it starts doing this weird stuff. You see how it's doing this like weird scrolly stuff? Yeah, we don't want all of that. So I'm gonna go ahead and clear. And I need to give it some instructions. Actually, this is a good time to update our Gemini context. So I'll say, make a new standard for what to do when we first start working in a new chat session. The procedure is to check the scope document. Here, I'll give it an actual link. Hopefully, this might end up changing later on, but for now, it's fine. Please check, and also check and if necessary, you can review the Git logs for the previous day or for the previous. Actually, no, we don't need to look at the Git logs. That could actually be quite a bit of stuff to add to context, and we don't really want to do all of that. To get an idea of what we are doing and where we are in the process. Restarting Gemini was also good too because it allowed us to add our new documentation standards into our current workflow. Okay, so it read our project scope and everything like that. And what's this? Oh, it's making a new standard. Okay, let's see what that does. Yeah, I really need to come through here and optimize my Gemini standards. I'm going to condense these probably in some type of way. Actually, I'll probably do this before we head out for the day. I'll just do like a quick run through. Let's do a npm or bun run lint. Oops, what is it? I forgot what that command was. Let's do lint fix. That's a long command. Lint md fix. Okay, thank you. Thank you, come again. Thank you, come again. Okay, so that gets added. In my Gemini file system, I have these tables because it's a good way to interlink your files, especially if you have it interlinking to things that are not necessarily Gemini files, and you want to give them some context to explain what they're for and what they do. Okay, so it's making the initial session. Cool. Oh, it's just moving these files. Okay. Thank you. Okay, cool. Okay, now we can, oh, so let's refresh memory. And let's do compress. And then we'll go ahead and commit these two. Whoops, what did I just do? My bad. There we go. Okay, so let's do a commit for our new standards. I bet this process seems really strange. Like if you're used to not having to like monitor and manage all these like little details, trust me, it is worth it. You can go super fast with AI, but one of the biggest issues is that your project gets really, really out of hand. It's really hard to manage, especially when you're working in things that you haven't really used that much before. So if you do this process that I'm showing you, you will keep it all together. Oh, hey Marcos, what's up, dude? I'm sorry, I didn't see your message. I don't know if you were here when I was on my break, but thanks for coming by. I'm gonna make you a moderator. I'll make you a moderator. Marcos was one of the students at the school that I taught at. He wasn't one of my students, but he was one of the students at the school that I taught at. So, incredible developer. Go check out Marcos's page. On YouTube and on. Actually, Marcos has a great Emacs tutorial on his YouTube page. We should get him on here. We should totally do like an episode or something, or like a little chit chat session one of these days. That would be so fun. Okay, so we can continue where we left off, and I'll just say to this. I don't like how that hides every time it runs. I'll just say to this. We can continue. Oh, we'll say initialize for this new. Actually, let's start a new chat session to make sure it works. We are starting a new work session. Initialize. Oh, that didn't work. Okay. Oh, I had gotten into G Pro. That's why. We're gonna stream for another hour. I can't believe we've already been on here for 2 hours, but we're gonna stream for another hour, and then we're gonna get off of here. And by the way, if you're new to our stream, my name is Key. I am the founder and the architect of Primatif, and we are working on a comic book making app. We're at the very beginning, the beginning. So if you are new to this channel, you're like, what's going on? This is basically us just setting up the application. We're setting up the fundamental foundation undercrust that will allow us to build this in a really responsible and well-managed way. So, okay, so we did the initialization thing, and it did what we wanted it to do, which was to read these two files. That is perfectamundo. Okay, so now I'll just say we already started a bit of the next task. Check the unstaged git changes to see, and we can continue as we go. Please explain what you're doing and why along the way. Don't forget the documentation standards. Cool. Let's keep it going. Okay, so apparently there is a database running somewhere within the deep recesses of our application. I don't know necessarily how to connect to that SQL instance that's running with our application, but I do have this database browser for SQLite. You can also use dbeaver as well. But this database browser for SQLite, this is the main GUI that I can use to interact with my database outside of my application. And they have a website where you can download this. Let's see, DB browser for SQLite. This is going to be a pretty essential tool, though, because as our application gets much larger, especially if there's like issues and bugs, we can use this to inspect our database. We can also write independent SQL code to manipulate our database if we want to do that as well. And if we want to populate our database with some information, we can do that as well too. So all of those are going to be like really important use cases, and this database browser for SQLite is going to be the way that I do it. This seems to be one of the more popular tools, but you can also use dbeaver. If you're a developer that has other databases in mind with your work life or whatever, the dbeaver Community Edition works with a ton of different database types. So you can't go wrong with that. And it's something that I used to use in my professional work, but I no longer use. So DB browser for SQLite is also really good. I personally tend to like tools that are specific for what they're for. That's just kind of my preference. I find that they're better made, and I find that they better reflect like the reality of whatever their target is. That's just my opinion, though. So we don't need this for now, but I'm going to have to figure out how to actually connect this to the database in the future. Probably something to do with this open. Oh, I could probably just open up the file. Well, okay. Well, since we're here, speaking of the devil, give me just 1 second. Let me locate that file and see if we can get it opened. I might have just solved my own question. Okay, 1 second. I'm gonna go. I'm doing this off screen. So, actually, I don't know if this app.db is located. I think it's in the distribution or something. I don't think it's in my source code. That's the only thing. So I don't know where it's located, but I know it exists. I might need to come back to this. Target. Let me just do a quick search. Yeah, I'm going to have to find a way to expose that database file, but it's good to know that all I have to do is just open up the file, because that's kind of literally what SQLite is, just a file. Okay, so so it's going to check to see here what I have going on. It's going to look at these two files, and it's going to pick up where we left off. So the main RS file simply calls read Tauri function. Okay, cool. I have the content. I needed to actually read. I think it's trying to do something redundant. We just needed to use Tauri plugin log, I think. Oh, so there's a log crate, which Tauri plugin log relies on. And so let me just kind of cue you into what we're doing in this exact moment. What we're doing right now in our docs is we're adding a logger. Now, this is important because with our application being in Tauri, what that means for us is that we have a front end and a back end that are distinct languages and also distinct parts of the stack. So we need to have a logging solution that essentially will make it easy for us to see what's going on across the stack when we get to like debugging and stuff. And we need to make sure that it is inclusive of the front end and the back end, because this is not like a SaaS application or anything like that. We're not going to have like a singular database. Every user is going to run their own database. Every user has their own server. Every user has their own front end application. And in the event that there are issues on the user system, we need to be able to provide the error messages or the telemetry to create those error messages so that they can be accessible by the developer, and if there's a need for that. So this logging system is going to make it easy to do that. Just as a quick example, have you ever played like a video game, or have you ever had like an app like Photoshop or something like that on your computer, and then you run into an error, and then that error actually is going to end up in a file somewhere? There's probably a file or a folder. If you look deep within the recesses of that actual application's folder structure where it's installed, there's probably a log system or at least a file where all that gets stored. And that is created and managed programmatically. And so whenever there's an error or the app crashes or something like that, it writes a message. It probably also writes other messages that are indicating like things that are happening along the way as the application runs, just for the sake of context. And that stuff becomes really important and very useful for diagnosing and discerning what happened in the event of a crash or a break or unexpected behavior. That same log file can in fact be leveraged and read and consumed as data to be sent through telemetry to the developer who might have a need for that information as well, to sort of detect among the fleet of software deployed, to detect what the common patterns and errors are, and hopefully address those before the user even notices sometimes. So that's kind of what we're setting up our application to do in a way. It's very simple, but that's the next work effort that we have here. Let's go to our current Markdown document. I have music playing in my ear, and it is Cardi B right now, and it's very distracting. Let me turn that down. Okay, so we're adding some foundational logging to integrate a robust logging system early in the development process that ensures that we have visibility into our application's behavior from the very beginning, making debugging and verification easier. So that's what this is doing here. Okay, so let's give it permission to continue. So it's going to add this new dependency for log. We don't need our application running right now, so we'll just pause that. Okay, so it's going to update our lib.rs. And what did it update? It added this line 33, my favorite number. 33 plugin. Okay, so it's adding a new plugin for when the application starts, essentially. And this is going to have the log targets for the log windows, the standard out, web view, and a file. Okay. And then we're going to import these dependencies up top. And what is this complaining about? Okay, so it's going to add some log messages. I got to fix this issue right here, but it's going to add some log messages here. And it's going to add a message inside of this error handling file. Right. Where did it add it? Yeah, so right here. This question mark means to unpack something. Okay. So we now have actual error messages being logged. That's nice. And then we'll do cargo check, which should resolve our dependency weirdness right here. Oh, okay. It has to fix that. Modify, change use, Tauri. Okay. To use Tauri, log target. Okay. Oh, so it should just be target. Okay. Okay, so let's let it do its thing. So what it's saying is that this part here was incorrect. And we were trying to use log target. It should just be target. I wonder if it's not using context 7. So I have this MCP server in my computer, or in my Gemini, and I thought it was set up to use context 7, which should give it the most up-to-date documentation details for anything in code. But it doesn't seem like it's working. So I don't know if there's a way to verify that. But you can see here in my Gemini session, it says 2 MCP servers right here. I don't know if it's actually doing its thing though. So looks like it's checking online. Now I've checked the correct. I'll run cargo check again to verify that all the changes are correct. And we did that. We have some issues here. This is inside of the log level filter. Oh, so this right here. Okay. No associated item named log. Okay. Oh yeah. This makes sense. Yeah, okay. I'll explain what it's trying to do and why this is wrong. So right here, this is saying that there are different places that we can write logs to, and this one doesn't exist. Okay, we have to have a place to write logs to. And if you think about it, where do you write logs? Well, you can write logs to your standard out, which is your actual terminal. You can write log, and that would be for like the server type stuff. So when we do anything in this terminal down here, you can write logs to the web view, which is going to be the actual application, which is being served in a web view window on your operating system. And then we can also write to a file because we're going to have a log file where we keep these so it's persistent, possibly as well. So what it's going to do here is it's going to make a correction because this option right here doesn't exist. And we had a syntax error. Hopefully that gets fixed up. So we'll just do cargo check again. Okay, so what I like to do sometimes is I'm going to let this try one more time, and if it doesn't work, okay, I'm actually going to pause this. So sometimes Gemini CLI or any agent tool that you're using can struggle to solve some problem, and that's pretty expected and normal. I have a backup here, and I'm gonna ask Cascade to try this for me. I'm gonna put it on the most advanced model that I can get access to, which at the moment is Claude. I thought there was. Oh, it's not here anymore. Okay, so we have access to Claude Sonnet 4. I'm going to use 3.7 thinking. Okay, so I'm going to tell it here, can you run cargo check within the source Tauri repo to check our app and then fix the issues with the logger. But first, read the code to understand and also read current.md to see what the goal here is. So I'm going to have basically Cascade act as a supervisor or a manager or something to check the code that that Gemini CLI is running. And it's going to hopefully identify what the issue is. And while that's doing its thing, I'm going to say, don't make any changes. My other agent is going to fix this. But I am curious if you know the state of your MCP servers, because I just feel like it's not working. Oh, you don't? Okay. Okay. Says I can do Control T. It says it's disconnected. Ooh, oh, it's not working. I don't know why. Okay. Okay, so I gotta get my MCP server for Context 7 fixed. I don't know what's going on with it, but I'll fix it later on. Okay, so this here is going to make some updates for us. Let's see what it's saying here. Okay, it's just reading our files right now. So it's going to run cargo check for us. Okay, the main problem is that the target enum for Tauri plugin log doesn't have the web view standard out variants that we're trying to use. We need to check the documentation. Okay, cool. I see that we're using Tauri plugin from Git repository with Let me just also check that because I don't know if that's like a valid one and the hallucinations be real. So let me just check this manually. Tauri plugin log. Okay, so I can see here we have the front end logging stuff. Um, hmm. I think that is having us do this in a weird way. But let me Tauri plugin log. Is that what it's called? Let's go check our thing here. Tauri plugin log. Tauri apps. Tauri plugin log. Okay. Okay. Plugins workspace and so there's a V2 and a V1, and I don't know. Okay. Branch V2. Okay, so that's good. So I'll show you what I'm looking at. I don't have enough room on my screen, but I'm looking at this essentially. This is the official GitHub page for Tauri plugin log, and I'm making sure that my implementation that was guided by Gemini or whatever is actually following this standard here. So yeah, I need to make sure because I don't want to just give it free range to try to figure out all this stuff. I want to be able to still guide it. Okay. Oh, we also need to add it for the front end while we're here. I'll do that really quick too. Okay. I'm just going to tell it now to please review. Reject. Can you please review the documentation and then set it up as is? Actually, I'm gonna see if Gemini can do it now, just directly from this documentation. Okay, can you review our logging setup and fix it? Use this documentation as a primary guide. And let's see what it does. Yes, please. Place. Okay, so it says that we need to have we need to enable the default log or the log default capability. Within here. So that's something that it didn't do. Let me try to do this myself, and then if I can't get it figured out, then we'll just have Gemini help me. So we need to have in here, let's see, Windows, we got that, main security. We got permissions is a new section that we need to have. Okay. Look, we could put that right. We'll put that right here. Actually, wrong place. We'll do it right here. Permissions. I don't know what core means though. Property permissions is not allowed. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Oh, this just need to go inside of app. I think this needs to go inside of app. Yeah, this needs to go inside of app. Let's put it right here. What? No, that's where it goes. It goes right here. I don't know. I really don't know. This is a little bit. So the documentation doesn't say where this goes. Okay, let's just see what Gemini was about to do. Let's give it a chance. Okay, so it's going to update this here with okay. And it's going to update these targets. Okay, and then it's going to. Oh, is it? I was doing the wrong file. It's in this capabilities file. I see. Okay. Oh, okay. They need to make that a little more clear. So we have one here. It's going to be called permissions, and we need to add the log one. And then now we can do cargo check. This is going to break because we have an issue right here still. Okay, so we can, I think it's telling us to do it in a different way. Oh, we don't need this anymore? Okay. Okay, let's do cargo check. Okay, I think we... Child, I don't know what we just did. I don't know what was accomplished. I just know we clicked some buttons. I'm kidding. Okay, so let's just read through this. Sometimes I feel like that though. Okay, so let's just read through this. So we have these 3 different targets for where our log should be written. So I'm just gonna say we need to establish a target for log for an actual log file for development. Or wait, log file. I'm gonna see what it recommends. Because in my mind, I'm thinking we need to have a file location for these logs to exist in development mode that's easy for us to access. But then for running the app on the user's computer, it needs to be somewhere within the folder system that's designated for the actual application to run. And those are 2 different locations. But let's just see what it recommends for us. Okay. Okay, platform-specific location. The plugin automatically places the log file in the operating system standard log directory. I'm going to check off screen, so don't be up in my business. Give me one second. Okay, so it should be in. I should use terminal for this. Library, logs. I've like literally never been in here before. Oh, I see. Um, okay, I've never actually looked at this before. I'm more of like a web developer, but so you can see here that I CD'd into this location, and I'm on a Mac computer, so this is going to change depending on what kind of computer you're using. But you can see here that there's a standard location that all log files will get saved for applications. And basically, I'm going to be targeting this same directory so that my log files will exist among these, including the wonderful Wizards of the Coast. Love them. Okay, so that's what we're going to do with that. Okay, so I'm just going to say it here. We want to make sure the file has prefixed the name of our app, which is Primatif Comics, so that they're always identifiable and easy to access as well. Okay, so it's going to make that change for us. So now Primitive Comics log. Okay, so, and these are, the strategy I'm going to use for my logging system here is going to be called a rolling log, which means that it's going to, and I'm going to do the rolling part of the logging system later on, but the idea is that it's going to basically populate a log file up to a point, then it's going to make a new one, and it's going to keep these numbered. And then as we reach some maximum capacity, like 3 or 4 or 5 log files, then it's going to delete the old one. So we'll always have a rolling system, but it won't like infinitely expand, and take up all the user's memory or whatever. Okay, so cargo check is passed successfully. Okay, cool. I think we can do the rolling log thing right now, actually. Let me see if there's a way to do it. Can we set this up as numbered? Can we set this up as numbered log files that are batched with up to 100 logs and rolling, so that there are never more than 4 log files. My app is not going to be that darn buggy. Okay, I don't need 5. 4 is plenty enough. Stay with me now. Can your video be demonetized for humming a song? Okay, so let's see. Unfortunately, the documentation indicates that rolling strategy will keep all rotated log files and does not have a built-in mechanism to limit the total number of files. Okay, so there is one for keeping just one log file. Can we do a maximum of 500 logs and just keep only one file? Actually, that doesn't work because it'll delete, at 500, it'll delete all the ones before it. Actually, you know what? At the moment, I'm not going to worry about this because I'm probably going to need to write some type of additional, like a plugin or something that will go through and delete anything beyond, like anything old, since it's not a built-in thing from what this is telling me. So I think what we have is fine. Just make a new backlog item that is about adding the rolling feature. Make it follow the format of the other backlog items. So I'm going to add a new backlog item, and that way we can table that for now. and worry about it later. Give it a second. Okay, so it's going to make a new backlog item. Let's go check that. And backlog. There we go. Okay, cool. Okay, so I think we can do a commit now. Let me just check my files. Make sure update our code documentation standards so that we always will update the documentation as we modify the files. That way it stays valid. And then check our staged. Check our staged files to make sure Rust docs and other docs are updated. I should have put that into my standards earlier, but essentially we have a standard that is enforcing the creation of these documentations in our code, which is really nice because it means that now our code will actually have this really nice documentation to read. You know, it's going to be really easy, especially once we start moving functions between files and stuff like that. But also just because when I come here and read this stuff, I might forget, especially as a beginner, exactly what all these things are doing. And by having up-to-date documentation, it's going to be easy for me or anyone else, including yourself, to come to these files in this application and read it. It's a huge thing. I always recommend if someone is new to development or like vibe coding or doing any of that kind of stuff, just go ahead and make sure all your code has in-code documentation. If you're using JavaScript, it's called JS docs. If you're using TypeScript, it's called TS docs. If you're using Rust, it's called Rust docs. And this is just a typical pattern of how to write comments in your code that can be picked up and processed by different tools. You can even automatically generate documentation for your code if you do it in your code, and that can exist as like a separate tool. Okay, so cool. Make sure the code docs are updated. I don't know if I actually did that. Okay, so it's going to update some of these files for me. Okay, cool. So yes, let's go ahead and commit. I'm going to do that myself. And then we'll refresh memory. And then we'll do compress. Okay, so now we have a logging system. I don't know that these logs will necessarily show up yet, but we can check. Let's go ahead and run our application. And yeah, let's go ahead and run our application. And I might see the log show up in that directory. And it should be called Primatif Comics. Now I'm looking at these logs. I'm like, what is this? I ain't never been here. I ain't never been to this part of the city before. Some of this stuff I know what it is, but some of the stuff I'm like, what is this? Like, what? I hope this is not giving up any super important information about me. I don't think so, though. except I use Wizard Coast for something. Okay, so let's go ahead and get our app running. It is going to take a second because it's slow, especially when you add new dependencies and stuff. It can be a little slow with getting those built. I think I think we might have some type of caching setup. I'm not entirely sure if that's the default thing, but we might be able to improve our build speeds by doing caching. Okay, so let's go ahead and see if we now have one for Primatif Comics. I don't see it in here. Okay, so let me just ask, with our current Tauri logging strategy, would there be anything that would write logs for us that we can observe by opening the file? Sorry, this is poorly typed, but if I mess up with spacing, I usually don't go back and fix it because that's not a significant burden for AI. Okay, so we're looking for logs primitive. Oh, so I don't have that in here. I don't see it. Maybe we should ensure that whenever the app loads, there is always a message that announces. Wait. So I think the log info is maybe not ending up in there. So I'm going to make sure that this message right here always shows up in our log file, this one right here, at the minimum. And this will allow us to see that it's working. It's insisting that it is, though. Let's see. Uh-oh, I messed it up. Okay. You're right. We want to confirm the logs have been written with the current configuration. Message should definitely be written to Primatif Comics log file. This is because are captured in both debug for development and info for release level log levels, which are what we've configured. Run the application at least once after the logging changes have been applied. The log file is created. Okay. Oh, so it's com dot. Oh, here it is. I didn't see it there. Okay. So let's do cd com dot primitive. Oops. And then we'll just do cat. And then we can see here that we have this message here. This is the one that was created. So that's beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Beautiful. I'm so happy. Okay, so we got that figured out. That actually means that we have completed our little task here. So that means that we will be able to check off the foundational logging task here. That's great. So we have completed step 3 of our current .md document. That's great. You got to put the flowery language in there. AI doesn't care. So that's great. Please update current.md and also add some notes that describe our implementation and if there were any differences in what we did versus what was proposed in the current document. And I think this is where we'll cut off. So that means we only have 2 more steps left before we have finished our first sprint. The second one is to set up the architectural pattern for the front end, which is for it to use the invoke method to retrieve that data from the database, and then also to do the CI/CD pipeline stuff, which I am a lot more adept at. That's going to be easier for me to get through than this. So get add docs. Okay, current. Wait, what? Okay, so it looks like it did update. Let's just double check real quick. Foundational logging, cool. Okay, I think we're good on that, and it's going to add that to my Git. I don't want you to do Git stuff. No, thank you. And there was something else. What was it? Oh, let me go ahead and commit this, and then let's have it actually update our change log too. So we need to update the change. Let me get an actual link to that file. So change log here. Copy relative path. Okay, so it's going to basically look at our Git log history to see what we did today, and it's going to also take into account steps 2 and steps 3 of our current.md document, and then it's going to make a new change log entry for us up here. I did it at the bottom. We need to also these dates are not in order. Okay, let me make a new standard here. Can you make a new standard for managing the change log? It should have dates in descending order from the latest date, and also the format should be standardized. After you make this new standard, update this file to reorganize the entries. Okay, so after it does this, I think that we will be done for the actual work on today's stream. And I know we didn't make any significant changes to the UI. What we really did is this is not gonna work right now. But what we really did is we kind of gutted out the back end, gave it a database, and now the next step is going to be to take that and connect the front end, which means we're going to gut all this stuff out, and then just make sure that what we're seeing on the DOM is actually coming from the database instead of being hard coded. That's going to just be our little proof, our little our proof. What I'm trying to say here. By doing that, we will have evidence for the kind of coding that we need to do in the future, which is going to be all database driven as far as saving our documents and our canvas and stuff. So we're doing something really simple to set that up so that we can do something complicated in the future and not have to worry about the actual setup itself. Okay, so it's updating our Gemini standards. And now it's going to update this changelog file for us as well. Something that I could do as well is I could probably make a tool that will what I like to do sometimes is I like to actually just have like a command line interface that Gemini uses so that it doesn't have to rely on its memory of what to do. And that saves me from having to write a bunch of documentation for my context file. But those are all optimizations I can make later on or just on my own time. I don't want to suffer you through that boring stuff. Unless you're interested, let me know. Okay, so this is our new log file. And establish core backend infrastructure with our RESTQL-like for database integration, including schema, all this stuff here. Okay, this looks good. Tauri logs, cool. Okay, cool. So now we have some additions to our working history, and we can go ahead and commit this. And then I just have a quick question for this. Okay, I want to hook up the database viewer for SQLite to see the DB for this app, but it says I need to open a DB file. Can you walk me through this? So I have my DB viewer app, which I guess I closed. Let me reopen that. DB browser, this thing right here. And when I try to open up my database, I need to have an actual file. So I don't know where that file lives. Oops, okay. Oh, okay, so it automatically stores it in my application directory. Oh! Oh, so y'all trying to impress me, I see. Y'all trying to impress me. Look at how this thing is just doing things and doing things. Okay, so give me just 1 second. I'm going to check this off screen. Like I said, I don't want y'all all up in my business. Mind your own. I'm going to do this off screen real quick, though. Give me a second. So library, application. /support com/primitive. Oh, they did not make this easy. Okay, so I'm gonna show you now. This is not good for me to show. 1 second, let's make this a little bigger. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, so here's my terminal. And what this is saying is that on your computer, if you're working on Mac, then if you go to this library/application/support, you're going to find that there's a standard place to store these database files. And so that is where I am right now on my computer. And then if I do ls, I can see that there's app.db. So this is what I need to basically give to my database viewer. Now, as far as how I get this in here, I think, let me do this off screen. I've never used this interface before, so give me just 1 second. Oops. Okay. library support. I don't think that I'm in the right place. Okay. Library. Oh, is this a hidden file? I am not seeing this. Library. I don't see library in here. Users. Okay. I think I might not necessarily be in the correct place. Let me do this. There's a little trick I can use. I can actually open up this location from my terminal. And then I can just add this location. I'll just add this location manually to my sidebar, and then I will be able to easily find it in any window. Primitive Comics. I'll just add application support here. Okay, so it's not saving it to directory, it's actually saving it to the root of application support. Okay, so now I can show this on my screen again safely. Okay, so this is my database browser for SQLite. If you go to your application support folder, you should be able to find your database, and mine's right here. Invalid file format. No! Okay. Let's see why this is doing that. App.db. It should be in there. That's so weird. We're 5 minutes over. Okay. Let's see why this won't let me. Let me close my app. And rerun it. And let's see if this does something. It's probably not going to do anything different. So this is what I'm seeing here. I don't know what this means. Oh, it's a package. Oh, I see. It's a package. Am I able to open up a package? Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so let's see. When I try to open it, it's actually a package instead of a directory. So I can't open it to access the app.db file. I might be able to just give a path, I guess. I don't know. Okay, I can just give it a path, I guess. So ls cdcom.primitive ls. So pwd. Okay, I'm just gonna be able to give it a path, I guess. And we'll just do this here. And whereabouts would I be doing this? Sorry, the stream has gotten all of a sudden very boring as I'm trying to figure out this weird, obscure thing. Okay, so here's some more specific instructions. Open database for a prominent open database button, toolbar, and welcome screen. It's trying to just guess here. I needed to search online. That's another thing. When you're using AI, unless you have something like Context 7 working, you need to make sure that it's using actual information about something instead of like, just guessing or whatever. And so always reference that it should check online or view official documentation, or even you can give it a link. Gemini CLI can read web pages. So if you give it a link, it can just read that. But if you don't do it, you're going to just risk it giving you something entirely wrong, or it just like overly generalizing as well. Okay. Let's see here. File open database. I thought this is what we did, but let's try it again. Open database. I don't see in here where I'm supposed to be able to give it a file path. That's so. I know it feels like a Windows. I'd be able to do it. So it's saying that I should be able to take a thing like this. Oh, okay. So you can just drag from one. See, that would have made my life all the more easier. Okay, so there we go. Now we open this up, and now we can see that we have our messages. So all I did was I had another window to the side with the actual location of the package inside of that, or the database of that package. I just drag and dropped that file into the actual window, and then it let me view it. So that's good. So now I can see my database here for messages. It is empty. I have no messages in here, but I can see the table exists. So that's good. Okay, so that's cool. So that's bueno for us. I think we're good on that. That was the only thing I just wanted to know before I headed out here. And yeah, I think this was a pretty successful work session. So I'm going to go ahead and end it off at this point, and I'm going to do my last little monologue for the day. You know I love a good monologue. So give me just 1 second. Let my brain percolate. Okay, so I got something for you. Okay, so at the beginning of the stream, I talked a lot about research and how important it is to be continuously researching as you're developing your applications. Now, when I mentioned this earlier, I tried to qualify this by communicating that there's a process. You never want to just make big tangents when you're working on things, all the more if you're working on things with other people. So when you're doing research to perhaps improve your process or improve your feature designs or your application in general, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're integrating any new things into your existing workflow. Now, it can become one of these like endless games of gotta catch them all when it comes to making your application use all the latest things, all the most current technologies, whatever the latest fads are. If there's a major new update for something, or if there's a better tool in general, and that will never go away. You're always going to find that there might have just been a better way to do something, and instead of just running to make that change, do your research, of course, do prototypes to the side, and confirm your theory before you commit those changes to your actual project, right? And then when you get to the point where you're able to commit those changes, like if you did a spike, for example, then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to complete the current sprint that you're on if you're working solo, and make sure that you actually complete it according to the acceptance criteria that you wrote and committed to. The reason is because you want to get to a really, really solid state of closure with your current work effort, so that as you pivot to a slightly different direction, you can focus on updating your project scope document or your plans in light of that, while having the stuff that you were working on fully done. Does that make sense? If you do it that way, then what you're going to find is that you're getting to a checkpoint and you're pivoting, getting to a checkpoint and then pivoting again. And that process is going to make your development life a lot more stable. It's going to make it a lot more predictable. And you won't have like these awkward situations where you're like in the middle of something, it doesn't work, it's not finished, and now you're like jettisoning off into a whole different direction. Doing that is just not sustainable. It will wear you out. It'll put you in a tailspin, and you won't actually make progress. Applications that don't make progress towards their goals and just end up doing a big circle on like some like narrow corner, they don't do anything. They don't actually provide value for your potential customers or the people you're making the app for anyways. So you want to primarily focus on completing features and sticking with your sprint as you've designed it and as you've architected it, and then you introduce changes into your application. And let me just make a sidebar to focus just for a second on the importance of doing spikes, okay? So when I first started up this stream, one of the things I was saying is that I want to do a spike, and this spike is going to be dedicated to adding in WebAssembly WebAssembly could potentially, it most certainly will decrease the rendering time and also increase the performance of my application as a whole, since I'm going to be creating these canvases that users can do all sorts of crazy stuff on, right? So instead of just doing this in my application off the riff and just running into it, I have a whole spike, which is just a repo dedicated to that very specific thing. The only purpose of this spike here is to test out the ability to compile WebAssembly from Rust and then have that being utilized in my front end to manage the canvas or something like it. Okay, so I'm going to do it here first. I'm going to extract my learnings, and then I'm going to incorporate it into what I'm already doing with my application, hopefully before I even get to the canvas part. Generally, you want to do spikes and research before you implement the feature, you know? But in case you haven't, you can still go back and do that. But just make sure this is a distinct step of its own, and then you incorporate it into your code or whatever using your sprint agile process. If you skip all that stuff, it might not be the worst thing in the world, but as your application begins to scale, as you begin to work with other people, as there's more risk, especially with security and stuff, if you don't use this process of organizing yourself, then what you risk is making software that's unstable, potentially unsecure, or introducing a crap ton of bugs. Okay, so you want to make sure that you're going through the proper process, and that process is going to include additional design. Anytime you're adding features, you need to be designing. You need to be designing. You need to be designing. You need to be thinking about all the elements that go into it, all the contingencies, all logging, error handling. How does this affect the builds? How does this affect infrastructure? All those things need to be considered whenever you make a single change to your application going forward. So if you skip all that stuff, good luck. Okay, so that's my little spiel at the end. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Thanks for coming by the stream. My name is Key. I'm your lovely host and founder of Primatif. If you want to know more about what we do, just remember, you can always go to primatif.com and you can learn more about the business, about the services that we offer. And I'm going to be making some updates to the website here pretty soon, so you can also schedule some time if you want to have a one-on-one consultation or tutoring session. I was a teacher for 2.5 years teaching full stack development at a really popular school here in my city, and I would love to extend my offerings and my service to help you all out there. Okay, so don't go too far. Go ahead and subscribe, like, comment, and hit that subscribe button so you get all the latest updates whenever I go live. And I'll catch you later. Deuces! And if you're still watching, just know I appreciate you so much. So much.